So in this demo, I'm going to show Nuxt 3 in action. So I already installed Nuxt 3 package, which is still private at the moment, but for the purpose of this conference, I'm using this. And I added two scripts, one for development and one for build. We have a git ignore, which is including the node module, .nuxt directory and .output directory. That is the new output for Nuxt 3. This one might disappear, and you're going to have more explanation by listening to Daniel talk about Nuxt Nitro. So let's start Nuxt in development. So now we have same our server on localhost 3000, and we have our welcome page, link the documentation, the Twitter account for the latest news, and the instruction how to remove this welcome page. We can have an app.view, which is new in Nuxt 3, or create a page index. I'm going to create an app.view page at first, and let's have hello VueJS Amsterdam, and let's save. I need to refresh at the moment, but of course, once we will release, we will have the host module replacement for that. Once the page is set up, we do have the host module replacement working. One new feature we have is the ability to do data fetching inside the app.view. So you don't have to use Nuxt server init action if you use to Nuxt 2. I'm going to import async data composable. Use async data composable from Nuxt app composable. I'm going to instantiate the async data, and I'm going to do an API call. So we have data, and I'm going to use async data. Like in Nuxt 2, async data takes a function and has to return the data, but this function is asynchronous. Here I'm directly giving the promise return $fetch. We have access to $fetch globally inside our application, and I have a placeholder API for that. I'm going to name it mountains, and I will return the mountains here and display them here. Great. So let's refresh, and we do have our list of mountains, and if I look at the source code, we can see that they have been server rendered. Great. Now let's add our first page. So for this, I'm going to create a pages directory, and of course an index.view page. And inside I'm going to say notes. Let's create a notes application here. I'm going to keep the script. And in order to display my index page, I need to use the Nuxt page component. And here I have my index page, also with host module replacement. So to make this demo nicer, I'm going to use the Tailwind CSS CDN. We have CSS working, but we don't have this extract CSS. We are working on it. So at the moment, for the purpose of this demo, I'm using the CDN. And let's add some style here and here. Great. So now I have my demo. If I go to 4.4 page, we can see the default 4.4 page by Nuxt. But if I create a 4.4.view page and say, sorry, nothing there, and here I need to refresh, we can see our custom 4.4 page. Great. So now let's see a new feature we're going to land is the server directory. And I'm quite excited about this. As you know, we have the server middleware, So if I create, let's say, middleware log.js, here I can have Nitro saying me, we have a global middleware, and here I can have rec and res and next, and I can console log rendering rec.url and calling next. If I refresh, I can see my log here for every page, and if I don't call next, obviously it will wait, like a express middleware. Great, so now let's create an API directory. So let's remove the middleware, we don't need it here, and API hello.js, and let me export a function. I don't need rec and res, I just want to say hello world. And let's check the API hello endpoint. And here we go, we have our hello endpoint. And as you can see, it automatically changed. I just need to refresh the API endpoint, but we don't have to restart the whole Nuxt application. So you can keep working on your node, on your front end, and on your back end at the same time without having to restart the server. For my Notes app, I'm going to create a small DB util to store all of my notes that I can save on the server, and I'm going to create an API to add and delete nodes. First, I'm going to create a service directory and a db.js file. I will directly copy and paste since this is not really Vue related, but basically what we have here is I'm creating a node path in my home directory, which is called nuxt3node.json, and my nodes is an object. I'm trying to parse this file and assign it to nodes, and I'm transforming node as a reactive object thanks to Vue reactivity, and I will watch this node object, and every time it changes I will save it directly. So we have our basic database service. Of course, you may want to use a production database like MongoDB, Postgre, or even FaunaDB for serverless database. I'm going to paste directly the nodes directory I have created, which is basically doing REST operation on the nodes object that will be saved automatically. So if I go to API nodes list, I have an empty array, and I'm ready to start using this API for my application. First, let's add some style to our nodes. What I want now is an input deep text, obviously to add my new node, the placeholder, add a node, and on keyup.enter I want to add the node. To make it nice. Great. Now what I need to do is to be able to add my nodes and push it. Let's list them. So for that I will copy paste directly. If I have some nodes, so I need a nodes array, I will simply link it and display the node and the last updated. So like we have seen for the app.vue, I'm going to import the use async data composable from Nuxt. Then in my page I can also use async setup. I will instantiate async data. So I'm ready to fetch my nodes. And the beauty of $fetch, which is included in Nuxt, is when I'm calling my API, when I will do the server-side rendering, when Nuxt will do the server-side rendering, it won't make another API call, it will directly call the function. And let's return the nodes here. I'm refreshing. I have no node, obviously. Let's add our new node, which is an empty string that we use inside of vModels. And let's create our first method called add node. So if the new node is empty, we just bypass it. And what I want to do here is call my API endpoint, which is add, and I'm going to use the params to actually give the title with this.new node. And since I want the last updated to be first, I'm going to push it directly this.nodes.unshift node. Okay. Hello. Yes, we have our node. What I need to do is also to reset new node to an empty string. Welcome. Nice. Now what I have is I want to be able to go inside the node directly, paste on the slug. So in order to do this, I'm going to create another page. New thing in Nuxt 3. In Nuxt 2 you had to do underscore slug.view. Now the underscore are automatically skipped, and instead we're taking this bracket approach. This will also allow you to have multiple params inside one route. So here let's call it slug.view. I'm going to do the same here and show my node. So if I go here, of course I have to refresh. I have show my node. Great. Quickly let's add a link back to the listing of nodes. Okay. And what I want for behavior is, instead of unshifting, I want to go to this node.slug, so I can directly edit it once I created it. And nodes number 3. Great, I'm inside of it. Something to note which is interesting is if I refresh, you can see that my whole nodes have been server rendered. Like in Nuxt 2, it's working for Nuxt 3 and with Vue 3 obviously. Okay, now let's display our node. I will paste some templating. What I want is an input with the title, so I can edit the title directly, as well as a text area to display the node body, and a delete node link button, sorry. So same here, I want to use async data, and I also want to use root to get the parameter. So let's write our async setup method. I'm going to get the params from useRoot, and I'm going to get the async data method from useAsync data. Let's fetch our node. $fetch /API /nodes/get, and I'm giving the params which has the slug directly. Then I'm returning this node. Here I have my title, I have my body, and I can delete the node. But currently I can't, it won't do anything. So let's add our method to delete the node. Methods async delete node. I will directly call $fetch API node delete. And for the params, I do have this .node here, so I'm giving the slug from it, And once it's done, I want to go back to the home page. Great, let's try. Delete. Perfect. It's deleting the node. Last thing I want to do is to be able to update my node, that it will automatically save, so when I refresh I have my node updated. So for this there is a multiple way. What I want to do is directly watch from the node, and thanks to Vue 3 reactivity I can import watch from Vue. I can watch my node. Something to note here is the data we send back is a ref. So if you want to watch for it once it's updated, we have to use node.value. Here we have our updated node, and we can call our endpoint API node save, and I will directly give us a param the whole node object. Let's see what it does. I have my server here, and every time I type it says saving nodes. I refresh, I have my nodes which are updated. But this is a lot of API code. If I look at my network here, refresh, I want to debounce this. So Anthony Vue created a debounce watch composable. So I'm going to use VueJS core, which is a great set of utils of composable for Vue 3 as well as Vue 2. And instead of importing watch from Vue, I'm going to import VueJS core debounce watch. And I'm going to give a debounce of 400 milliseconds. So what it will do now is, when I will update, it will only make an API call once I'm done typing after 400 milliseconds. And that's it. We have our node page that we can edit. One thing I want to show is you can control the async data behavior. So let's update our get call. And what I want is to wait for 1 second before being able to fetch a node, like simulating a low connection or a slow API response. Await new promise. Here I get the resolve, and I'm going to use a set timeout to call resolve after 1 second. And here, as you can see, it takes 1 second. Async data composable is acting like Nuxt 2 async data by default, but the power of this composable, even if it's more verbose to write, is that you can now say, I want you to defer the navigation. By setting defer true, we are telling Nuxt to not wait for the async data before displaying the page. So what's happening is node will be undefined. So when I'm clicking here, it say cannot read property title of undefined because we use it here. So instead, I'm also going to get this pending that I can use here. If it's pending, fetching node, and I'm going to display this whole block once we are done fetching. And here we change the behavior. So we have instant feedback that we are fetching nodes, so we can display some placeholder. Something I also really like is the ability to move my whole node.view component, which is, let's say, this edit page, directly inside the component. And here I'm going to use to display the note component. And at the moment we don't have the auto import of component, but it's coming really soon. I need to import components, note, and obviously giving it like the old-fashioned way. And if I refresh, we can see our note working. We have the data fetching. And what's interesting also with server defer true is we still have the server rendering happening. If I want to disable it, I can say server false. And now if I refresh, I won't have the server-side rendering, and once the app is mounted, it will do the data fetching for us. And if I want to keep the default behavior, which is defer false and server true, my component can now block the navigation before displaying my note. So that is for the data fetching. One last thing I want to show you is the ability of create plugins. Hello.js, and let's console log my hello plugin and refresh the page. We have it here and we have it here. So automatically Nuxt 3 will auto import the plugin. If I want to have a plugin only on client and I refresh, I have my hello plugin only on client, and same for the server. Like in Nuxt 2, you can export a function. And what you get here is a Nuxt object, which is a bit different. It's not a context anymore, because right inside Nuxt, you have access to Nuxt.app, which is the app instance. So you can use app.use to install any Vue 3 plugins. And we also provide a provide method where you can inject hello here. And let's hack our way, because I don't provide directly Nuxt at the moment. And here I have access to window.nuxt.hello, and I have my Nuxt plugin working. Also, we are implementing the hooks, so I can listen when the Vue app has been created, app created, and let's have also our mounted. Let's refresh. I have app created on the server side, also on the client side. Then I have the suspense experimental flag warning, and then I have app mounted. These allow you to install or do some behavior depending on the hook, and directly plug your plugins inside the Nuxt engine. Great. So now let's build our app for production. So we have the Webpack build at the moment, and then we have Nitro, which is generating everything inside the public directory, and we also have the server. So this is our chunks, and this is the server chunk, client and server. And we don't have Nuxt start anymore in order to run, so this is able to minimize the output as much as possible, so you can run it with Node or any other engine supporting JavaScript. And that's it. I have my production application working. You can see that it loads chunk on demand. And yes, we have our application working.